Hi, this is Don with Uniquely-DOUBLEBEE. I am getting ready to do this video on yet another repair on my Ram here. Got it home from Hudlow Axle. There's a video on my page about the first time they did my 410 diff, but the center carrier bearing went out on the one they installed. They said it was in there weird, and so it was slipping on me, and they did the work under warranty, but they had it for 3 weeks waiting on parts to get in. Finally got it back the other day. Now it's a nice cold, rainy day, second day in a row. Got it here, had an exhaust problem, and put a new V-band clamp on and solved that. But then I kept hearing still air leaking from my engine, and it turns out, let me switch this. Okay, so kind of can hear a little air coming out of it, but you go under here. Let me see if I can set this microphone. But back there at the turbo, and it's backing up. Let me get this turned off. So I'm gonna do a little video. On where that leak is, and see if I can attack it and get it done without spending another $1,000 on this truck in maintenance right now. All right, let's roll tape. Okay, so it's on that mounting bolt in the back. I'll try to use the receipt to show the air. I was trying to show the air blowing around with that receipt, but it's on that back left mounting bolt for the turbo. So what I'm gonna have to do is I got to get everything detached from the turbo and then try to drop it down far enough. Hopefully it can go far enough to get a new gasket on there. Anyway, I got a whole turbo install video on my page as well, and that's the turbo that I installed. So I don't know what went wrong to make that gasket go out. Probably too much pressure. So I'm gonna have to dial down my tune, I think, so I quit breaking stuff. But other than that, got a bunch of stuff to disconnect. Got to get that exhaust temp sensor out. This control wiring here for the turning vanes, and get all this oil lines and coolant lines, get these air lines off. And then I'm hoping I can just drop this exhaust down far enough to where I don't have to, I fought to get this thing on there, and this new V-band, and it was a pain in the ass. So I'm hoping I can just undo most of the exhaust line and the whole thing would just set down. But there is an oil drain line that I got on the bottom of the turbo, but it's a flex tube now. And get this tire out of the way so I can get up in the wheel well, get this air ram out of the way, get all these lines disconnected so I can get access to those bolts. But here we go. All right, I got the air ram out of the way, and I loosened up all the brackets on the exhaust pipe down below, because my theory is I'm hoping I can undo those bolts. And this front one right here is a special kind. It requires a 13 mil, but it's got to have these spokes, 21 spokes. Anyway, I got them at Harbor Freight, and I'll put a link in the description. But they got special open end too, where it grabs on. Because if you can see, zoom in. See that thing? Dodge decided to put that slotted nut on the front. And then on the back is it's a stud. See if I can get my finger. On the back of that one is a stud, and then there's two nuts that are 15 mil, that one and the other one. But my goal is to get those undone, and then all these hoses, the oil hose, feed hose and coolant, and that speed sensor and that exhaust temperature sensor. They're all on loose stuff, and I undid all the straps for the exhaust, the straight pipe, and there's enough room near the frame that I'm hoping that I can just push this down enough. But if not, well, I'll be into it deep. That's what she said. All right, enough of that. Let me get the crack in these nuts and see what happens. Said the squirrel. Well, if it'll focus. What you gotta do is take it's a 12 mil. I thought it was a 13, but you just have to, there's a curve right here and you have to follow this curve. And then it just pops right on there. So I say, trying to do it while I'm looking at the camera. But anyway, you get it on there and then you can pop it free. And you have to get this thing off there before you start loosening it up more. All right, get the other ones. All right, that back nut was a 15 mil. And getting these little wrenches is ideal. This is 15 mil from Harbor Freight also, because you don't have to move a whole lot of crap out of the way, and you gotta just, you know, bang on it to get it loose. But once it does, and then you can see I got one more back here that I gotta do, and this wrench is perfect for that because it fits back there when I'm not holding the camera. All right, let me get that one out. Now I'm gonna get this high pressure boot off to the outlet on the turbo, pushes the pressure up and around and into the engine. But I gotta get this boot off, and I had this explode on me on a trip. That's a whole other video right there. All right, anyway, get this backed off. I got these bands loose. Well, decided I gotta get this oil drain line off, but my flashlight keeps going out. It's right there. All right, light went back out, but get that out of the way. Got these refrigerant lines loosened up. And then maybe that turbo will move down enough to get that gasket on. All right, so got the radiator draining. And how you do that is, well, let me get my flashlight. But there's this little plug like this, and it's a quarter turn plug. So it sits in the radiator like that, and you can take I think it's a T8 or H8 hex head, and then, or I just use a little pair of pliers and adjustable wrench or something like that, and then you can just turn that 1/4 of an inch, and then it gets it draining. But yeah, the plug is right down there where you see the water coming out. The best way to get to it, a lot of people pull this reservoir, this power steering reservoir and all that crap, and that's just too difficult. You just pull your front grill off, and it's 4 bolts and then some pins, and then you just pop this panel down, and you got all the room you want right here. So the reason I'm draining that is because this turbo is still refusing to move, and the actuator is hitting the frame. So in order to remove the actuator, you have to drain all the radiator fluid out, or you're gonna damage that thing. So I'm getting all that fluid out, and then once it's completely empty, I'll use an H5 socket head here, you know, with a hex end on it, and then I'll pop that off. But it's four screws, 2 on the top there, and then 2 down there on the ends. And get that out of the way, and then hopefully this thing will drop down. I'm kind of glad I'm doing it, because the end of this exhaust pipe is all rusted, and then the elbow is atrocious. I guess when I had that exhaust leak, it was getting water in there and it's all rusted up. So I'm gonna grind that all apart and get that cleaned up, not apart. I'll wire wheel it all, clean it up real good, then put this new gasket back on it before I put it together. And then I had to get the oil drain line off the bottom of the turbo. And I'm glad I did the dash. Excuse me, not the dash, the front grille, because this piece had rattled. Well, I had epoxy on it and it gave out. So I gotta fix that again. And then a couple little pieces came off of another end, but that's still draining. And it's about time to get close to switching to another pan here. All right, good times. All right, my next endeavor was putting this plastic bond, JB plastic bond, mixing it up on the card, and fastening back those plastic pieces that broke. And then this piece here had to be reinserted and glued. All right, day 2. Got some additional cursing and things to do here, but all right. So the problem is this thing is not rotating out, but I watched a couple videos. Let's see if I can get some light. All right, let's do that. Okay, so the studs up here, they're like 1/4 of an inch once you get them down on the mount, and they're just not coming out. So I let this line right here is your coolant line. It goes to the bottom of the turbo. So I popped that, let it drain all night last night because I just stopped working on this thing. But hopefully then it can get rotated out of there. But some people say to undo the engine mount bolts, which is underneath this back here, and I have to do them from below, but that's kind of risky for me here in my garage, but I may end up doing that. I'll have to take a look from below. If you take those bolts out, supposedly it gives you a couple more inches of room. And then some people say to take this battery box out and this coolant reservoir, and it gives you room to get down in there and yank on that thing. So may do that. Who knows? Just kind of play it by ear here. But right now, I'm on my second cup of coffee, and see what we can do here after I get that coolant line off. Oh, I see why they take this stuff out. They take this out so they can pull the turbo through here. But I don't need to pull the turbo out. I just need to get that gasket off and then get a new one on there. But I may look at some way to get those studs. I don't know. Anyway, I'll update you as I go. All right. Got her to roll out of there. And how I did that was, I'll credit the video, but the guy had a fancy shop. But basically, gist of it is, I got another one of my jacks and put a block of wood and put it on my transmission housing and just lifted the engine until I can get enough room. Here, let me get my light on. Get your light on. But these coolant lines right here, I don't know if they're showing, but these coolant lines were blocking this housing here. And so kept lifting the engine until I can get it. But now you can see the whole corner blew out somewhere on the road because I can't find it. And there's no pieces in the turbo. The vanes are turning fine on both ends. But you can see all the soot on the side of the engine. Now that I got it, I'm gonna clean all that so I don't, if I see new soot, then I know I got a problem again. But anyway, get the new gasket, put it on there, and then I'm gonna get the grinding on this exhaust, get all that mess cleaned up. Then mount that back, and I'm gonna put some thread lock, blue, I think. So key things was I had to get that high pressure boot off, got that out of the way. And then, well, here, I'll walk through my whole thing here in a bit. I'm gonna get this thing back on there with the new gasket. All right, got the new one out. So you can see it's double walled. Got this little ridge that fits up inside. Oh. And anyway, I'm gonna get this on there and then see where we can go from there. All right, got it remounted. So I put a blue Loctite on all of these, and started with this back one, got it started going snug a little bit, and then worked this one, then worked that one, and then got it up to where it was level. And then I tightened this one down, then did the back one. And this one here on mine is a 12, and these three here are 15 mils. But anyway, just kept going and going on each one equally, kind of like doing a tire. So do this one, then do that back one, then do that one, then do that one, and kept going until I can't budge them anymore. So let's hope that holds. But she's in there. All right, now to clean this puppy up. Well, first I'm gonna get the old feed lines, and then tape up that speed sensor where it's damaged on the cover, and then get this this coolant feed line back down so I can put it on the bottom of the turbo. And then get all the bolts back in the refrigerant lines. Anyway, I'm gonna put most of this back together before I go messing with this exhaust. Well, we'll see where it goes in the video. Well, she's coming back together nicely. I had to dress up that speed sensor, and then I got this high pressure boot back on, old feed line, and anyway, go down below and get that coolant line installed. You know, because there's a coolant line up here, and then it goes down through it, recycles back through. It's the way I understand it. If that's not how it works, let me know in the comments. All right, going below. All right, I got that clamp on, and the elbow's set. Just got to get the exhaust pipe adjusted, got the gasket ready. Now the exhaust temperature sensor, I got it in. I'm gonna put the heat shield on now, and the heat shield is 2 bolts at 8mm, and then use a small ratchet like this guy with a little 1/4-inch head is the best way to do that. And then let's see what else. Oh, put this line back on, and then the refrigerant lines, I got them back together, and those were done with 13 mil. But this one back here, let's see if I can get a picture of it. There's one back here. Oops. It's best to use a, dang it. All right, we'll get that back in a second. Best to use one of these little wrenches. Because it just zipped on there pretty well in that tight space. That's 15, 12, 13. So it was this one. It's like 4-inch long or something. Anyway, then this one here, you can use the socket. That one was pretty good. Other than that, and I tried doing the oil drain line, but the screws are being a pain as usual. So I'm gonna save that for towards the last. But right now I gotta get this strap back on that joint. So I gotta get the exhaust situated, get it all remounted, and then we'll go after that drain line. All right, got this exhaust bracket back on. These are 15s right here, 15 millimeter. And I got that other V-band clamp on. I'll show you from the other side here in a minute, but it took 2 people to do that one. Had to get this pipe set just flush with it, and then my father-in-law helped me out by fastening that V-band clamp from above. And then I got this one back on, and these are 14s. Yeah, 14 millimeter. The bolts, it's hard to see, but anyway, they're 14. And then this band was clearly extruding exhaust, sorry. And so that band wasn't tightening anymore, and I had it wrapped with special tape on a road trip, but that all came apart. And so I'm gonna clean this up, get a new clamp on it, and put some muffler JB weld. But that one there's got exhaust and issues too, and looks like I got another one down there. So I'm gonna check all these out. All right, I gotta put the oil drain line back on, which is that hose right there, and then tighten that back, the radiator fluid or coolant line back in its spot. So I'm gonna attack that coolant line first and then get this old drain line back on there. The old drain line is 10 millimeter bolts. And then that coolant one is 22 mil. All right. All right, round 2 at AutoZone. I broke this gasket on the old drain line. So, yep, nice and stormy here. Anyway, hopefully I can get this here. This our truck's doing better than that. I got my bag of goodies from AutoZone. Anyway, grab some lunch, head back to the house and put the truck back together. Alright, I had to get this oil and gas resistant gasket maker. So just made my own gasket here. And this stuff is rubber fiber sheet, part number 3157 from AutoZone. Anyway, let's see if we can get this on there. Well, alright, I hope this is in focus, but the wise idea to do is not do your coolant lines until the end, but pull them out of the way, and I'll show you. And then you have to use a swivel head and then get those started. I had to put a little bit of RTV to hold that gasket in place. And then anyway, got it on there. Got the coolant line on. Now I can put those AC coolant lines back in place, because it was, this line here was blocking any socket head about right here. And that's redonkulous. These engineers are freaking geniuses. All right, and this is a flex tube that I had to get because the previous metal one that's corrugated, I've had these gasket leaking a couple times in the past because that flex one was binding up or something if I hit something on the road with this area. And I ended up getting this one, so it's more flexible and easy to manage. All right, I'll put that in a link too. All right, yeah, I got that coolant line out of the, oh yeah, line out of the way. Undid that. It's 13 mil. Anyway, I used zip ties and hung it off this shock bolt, and that pulled it out of the way. And then I had to undo this back one again. I did earlier, but it's a 13 mil. Anyway, I get back that back together and then get some coolant in this truck. All right, got everything ready to fire her up, but thought I'd do a little summary and what I would do different if I had to do that again, which I hope I don't have to do again. But the steps that I would take if you're going to do this project to get that turbo mount gasket out is the following. One, of course, get it situated where you're going to work on it. Then I would pull the front grill off. Then I would, where I was telling you, go ahead and get the coolant draining. And then while it's draining, or after it's drained, I would get the truck in the air and get the tire off. Then after that, I would, well, you're gonna, I put a jack, you know, where you're gonna hold the truck up in case your lift jack gives out. Then get the wheel off, get the wheel well cover out. Then I would come in here and I'd undo these AC coolant lines, refrigerant lines first. So do that one and undo that bolt, and then pull those out of the way and get them zip tied up here like I showed. Then I would go underneath and go ahead and get another drain pan and go ahead and pop that, or wait till it drains completely, but there's still going to be residual in the turbo. So just go ahead and get that coolant recirculating line or feed line off the bottom of the turbo. And then now that you got the refrigerant lines out of the way, I go ahead and pop or use a swivel head socket and go ahead and get that oil drain line off the bottom of the turbo. Then I would come up here and get my air ram, whatever it is, out of the way. And if you have the EGR, get all that shit out of the way. Then I would undo all the top components, so the oil and the coolant feed line, go ahead and get those off and then set them back here out of the way. Oh, and before you do anything, go ahead and, this is a starter battery, so I get all that shit undone, that undone, other battery. And then take the grill off, and then blah, 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 go back through those steps. Then after I got all that, I would come under here and I'd get this high pressure boot completely off and out of the way. And then I'd undo this plug that goes to the actuator on the turbo. Then I would get the heat shield, and you don't really have to take off that exhaust sensor or temperature sensor cord, but if you want to, I'd go ahead and get that out of the way. Now to go ahead and get this strap off completely, and then I'd go underneath and undo as many holders of this exhaust pipe that you want to do. And some people even take a ratchet strap that I've seen, and they'll put the one end here and then ratchet so they'll pull that pipe inside another pipe like a telescoping mechanism out of the way. I didn't have to do that, but once you get that out of the way, just push it down and out of the way as much as you can. Get this elbow off, take that clamp off. All right, and then once you got that, start attacking the turbo mount bolts. And I found that once you get those undone, like I showed in the video, I'd get another jack and lift your engine up, and I use the transmission to lift it up some. And now you got those coolant lines out of the way, and you got this exhaust temperature line out of the way, blah, blah, blah. Now you just go to rolling this thing up and forward, and you're gonna have to pry and do some crazy wonder bread stuff. But anyway, once you get that, get the gasket back on there, and then roll that thing back up under there, put some Loctite on there, and then I would do medium. You can do orange, which is high strength but still breakable with tools. It's your choice. I put Loctite on there, and then snug those up really good, and then just put everything back in order as you took them off. Well, what I would do is once you get that, I'd go underneath and get the oil and the coolant line back on the bottom of the turbo. That's what I would do first, because they're the most pain in the ass. Then I'd come up, get my exhaust back on there, get the exhaust sensor, temperature sensor back on there, plug in the actuator box, then get the high pressure tube back on, then come up top and work all your top stuff. Then work your way to plugging the batteries back up, getting coolant added in. I'm getting ready to fire this up so I can see how much drop is in the coolant, and then start topping that off and see if she even fires up with no leaks, no oil leaks, all that good stuff. But get the coolant added. Then you can put your front grill back on, put the apron back up here, and call it a day. Let's see if she fires. Oh yeah, don't forget to put your exhaust clamps back on. So then go to test firing. So I'm gonna see what she can do. Oh hell yeah. Fired up. Then I went down, since she's cool, put my hands on all those attachments. Make sure no air is leaking, especially at the turbo gasket, and there's none. So now we're gonna let it cycle so I can get this coolant leveled out, get her back on the ground. All right, I got her pulled out of the garage. Got a cab light that's acting weird, so I'll take a look at that cab light. And then, but she's running beautifully, just purring, letting her warm up, get that coolant taken care of. It'll take probably driving it around to get it perfectly level, but it was a good time. And now got to find my garage again. All right, well, this is done. I hope this project helps you in your endeavors if you attempt to work on getting that turbo mount gasket taken care of, or anything dealing with the turbo. I do have a full turbo install video on my website or YouTube page, so you can check that out. And then other repair jobs that I've done or upgrades I've done to her. Other than that, time to go get a shower after I get all my tools picked up and degrease my face so I don't look like a grease monkey from Tennessee, and head to dinner. Get a good whiskey for good job, Don. All right. But y'all comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let me know if you have any questions. Don with Uniquely-DOUBLEBEE out.